بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا ولجميع المسلمين. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: باب إزالة النجاسة. يجزئ في غسل النجاسات كلها إذا كانت على الأرض غسلة واحدة تذهب بعين النجاسة وعلى غيرها 7، إحداها بتراب في نجاسة كلب وخنزير، ويجزئ عن التراب أشنان ونحوه، وفي نجاسة غيرهما 7 بلا تراب. ولا يطهر متنجس بشمس ولا ريح ولا دلك ولا استحالة غير الخمرة، فإن خللت أو تنجس دهن مائع لم يطهر، وإن خفي موضع نجاسة غسل حتى يجزم بزواله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We begin a new bab here. This is bab إزال النجاسات or Najasa. First thing to understand the importance of this bab. Many people, they're always waiting for the abwab where they're going to argue with people on how do you put your hands like this or like that. But these are practical masail that every one of us must know. This is fardul ain on every Muslim, because this is what makes your salah batila or qa'ima, is it established or is it nullified. This can prevent you from being in the masjid or going to the haram and so on because of your najasat and so on, and whether it affects your different ibadat. So this is something very important. This bab is very important. Secondly, this bab has to do with something that you run into regularly. Like some are very important abwab, but usually you don't face. Like tayammum is very important bab, but usually, inshallah, if you live in a country where there's running water and stuff and gas stations, you don't really run into the need of it. It's important. Why? Because if you do need it, it's fard on you to know it. But you don't. But najasat you deal with every day. Even when you go for al-khala, qada al-haja and so on, you deal with najasat. Here, living in the West, it's extremely important, because you will go to the park and unfortunately people think as if they have liberty for their dogs to come and lick you and jump on you, and you're expected to smile, and so this is something we deal with every day. You go somewhere, little Fluffy is going to come and try to, and then they're like, oh, she's friendly, give her a kiss. No, I'm good. I don't kiss dogs in the mouth. It's disgusting, right? But this is something we deal with. Like you go to school and you go walk into the bathroom and somebody, mashallah, has made the whole place najis and you're walking in it. Now you got it on your shoes and now you got to make salah, and what do you do and so on. So these are masail we deal with all the time. That's why this bab is also very important. I always like to begin with understanding the linguistics, and I'm going to explain some things that we didn't cover under Umda and Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat, because I want you brothers to, inshallah, grow. Izalat, what does it mean, izal? باللغة تضحية أو من المصدر نحى. Linguistically, it means to remove or to eradicate or to completely take away. وما هو النجاسة؟ and what is نجاسة؟ في اللغة الاسم مصدر وجمعها أنجاس. حقا القول الراجح هو أنجاس. وقال بعض أهل اللغة نجاسات جائز أيضا، نقول نجاسات أيضا. لكن ما هو الأصل؟ أنجاس. What is نجاسة? Linguistically, this is a word that means مستخبت, something that has become filthy. And the jam'a linguistically is anjas. Najasa, anjas. But you can also say najasat. As you can say kafir, kuffar. But you can also say kafirun or kafirat. Muslim, muslimun. That's the only jam'a for Muslim, for men. Muslimat for women. Najasa is muannath, it's female. So you will not have najasun, but you can have najasat. But what is the asal for it, anjas. The jam'a is anjas. Tayyib, what about in the Sharia? In the Sharia, there are a few different types of najasat. One we discussed earlier in the durus. An-Najāsah ma'nawiyya. Wan-Najāsah hissiyya. There is the najasa in the hukm on a meaning. Yani something that may not be physically najis, but there is a najasa. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجُسٌ. Verily, the mushrikun, the people of shirk, are najis. But that doesn't mean that this is hissi. Doesn't mean if they sit somewhere, you cannot sit there. If they shake hands with you, you're najis now. La. This is, as the ulama of tafsir have explained, that this is a spiritual najasa because of the shirk in their aqidah. Tayyib. So, this is one type. Then there is hissiyya, in that which is physically najis. Tayyib. Under that, there are two types now. This is why it's good that we have video. If you're not taking notes, watch the video later so you can take notes. If you are taking notes, take notes. If you're memorizing, inshallah, bless you because you have such a great memory, great. But these are important. The two types within hissiyya is najasa ayniyya wa najasa yani, let's talk about najasa hukmiyya. Ayniyya wa hukmiyya. What is najasa ayniyya? Something that in it of itself is najis, physically. Example, al-bawl, urine, adami, of insan. Insan's urine is najis ayniyya, an-najasa ayniyya. Tayyib? Why is that important to understand? We're under the bab of izalatul najasa, yani to remove najasa. Can a najasa ayniyya ever become tahir? Huh? What if you have some urine, right? You maybe you have one of those porta potties, right? The porta potty has urine, and then you see that urine, you start pouring a lot of water on it 7 times or 3 times. Will that urine ever become tahir? La. That's najasa ayniyya. That in itself is najis. It can never become tahir. Now there is an exception to the rule, and we'll get to that inshallah, which is what? He knows it. Khamar. Khamar, it's najasa ayniyya. But if it changes by itself, and it becomes khal, it becomes vinegar, then it becomes tahir. Why? We have dalil for that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ate vinegar, and you cannot eat that which is najis. But this is an exception to the rule. The rule is najasa ayniyya can never become tahir. Poop, dog saliva, it can never become tahir. The saliva of the dog itself. Istihala we'll discuss. The concept of a chemical change and so on, we'll discuss inshallah. But this is the hukm. So remember that. Ayn and najasa. Oh, najasa, ayniyya, can never become tahir. You can throw water on it, you can wash it, you can scrub it. You take some poop and scrub it a lot and put soap, it's still going to be najis. The poop is. Then you have hukmiyya. Najasa hukmiyya. That is something that was pure, that became najis by coming in contact with a najasa. Now, if your thawb gets some alcohol on it, you're at work and some coworker is drinking a beer. I don't know why they're drinking at work. I don't know how they're going to drive home, but it happens. And he's coming from a corner, you're walking, he bumps into you, he spills his beer on you. Astaghfirullah. Right? Now you got something that is najis. Rijsun in the Quran. Rasulullah or the Sahaba, if you're going to drink in these cups, then you have to wash them. So it's najis and it's on you. Now your thawb is not najasa ayniyya. It itself, it was not najis. But what is the hukm on your thawb now? Najis. You see the difference? Just understand, you have to understand. Because some people, they go through these abab, but they don't understand how to implement. One brother, he was teaching in another, not nobody that you guys know. He was teaching about how to take najasa off, and he didn't understand this myself. This is why I'm emphasizing it. Somebody sent me this dars. I'm watching it in Arabic. And he goes, yeah, and he's reading, and he's like, yeah, najasa can be taken off. So if you have alcohol, but if you do it, and if you wash it this many times, then the alcohol is no longer najasa. What? He didn't understand the difference. He only he read it here and there, whatever. So he implemented the hukam incorrectly. And I'll give you some other examples of people who don't understand usul as well, or adilla, and they implement these things incorrectly. Hukmiyya can only become tahir, najasa al-hukmiyya, with one substance. What is that? Al-ma'a. ما هو أصل؟ لا يجوز إزالة النجاسة إلا بماء. وأي ماء؟ ماء طهور، ليس بطاهر أو بنجس، بماء الطهور، كما قال في الإنساف والفروع. وهذا هو يعني معروف عندنا علماء من المذهب وغيره، وفيها خلاف علماء لكن هذا هو راجع. طيب. What does that mean? As is mentioned al-insaf and al-furu' and sharh al-muntaha al-iradat and so on, that you cannot take off najasa except with water. But we just studied a bab of tayammum, where you could make tayammum if it's on your badan, if it's on yourself, right? But what did we learn in that bab? Tayammum does not take away najasa, and tayammum does not take away hadath. It only makes it permissible for you to be able to fulfill those obligations. It's a rukhsa. So what can take away najasa? Al-ma'a. What if you get somebody threw beer on your clothes? We just mentioned this example. And you go put your shirt out in the sun. And the sun's rays, you know, they have an effect, they clean things and all that. The sun's rays work on your thawb. Then you go back a day later and you're like, I'm going to throw this thawb on. Right? Can you do it? There is khilaf ulama. But what is rajih and what is from the jamhur and what is no doubt bi adilla, you cannot. Why? Because when you look at the adilla regarding izalatul najasa, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never left it to just the shams. And we'll talk about all of the ahadith that talk about it. For example, the Bedouin that came and urinated in the masjid. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at that time, they didn't even have a proper roof. He could have told the Sahaba, and he moved the leaves, let the sun hit it, khalas, we'll make salah on it after a day or two. But he didn't. What did he order? Water to be spilt on it. Tell you, what about walagh al-kalb? When a dog licks your bowl, can you just leave it out in the sun? La, you have to wash it 7 times. أحدهن بالتراب. طيب. So what does that tell you? If you look at all of these ahadith, we do not find adilla to prove that just putting something in the sun will clean it. What about air? Somebody just takes a lot of air and blows on it. Now, I don't know how dry cleaning works. I'm not a laundromat guy, right? But I'm assuming by the word dry cleaning, they don't use water, right? And that would mean that it does not take place of izalun najasa. Can it clean your clothes? Probably. If you leave your clothes outside, they'll probably not smell bad. That's a different thing. But the taking off of najasa is something that is a shar'i hukam, has to be in accordance to the hukam. See? Now, before I move forward, if you get najasa on you, like you'd say some urine from your baby daughter, right? Now, the urine bowl, it has to be washed, baby daughter, right? We'll talk about how many times in this dars, inshallah. But let's say you wash it. But the urine itself is still there. Let's say you washed it 1 time or 3 times or so on, but the urine is still there. You can still see the actual urine, not just the effect of it, but the urine. But you washed it the amount of times you had to. Are you done? La. Aynun najasa has to be taken off. Some athar of it, some effect of it especially having to do with dam, but blood may remain, and we'll talk about that. But this is another principle you need to understand. The ayn al-najasa has to be taken out. For example, if you get some poop on your clothes somehow, right, and it's a najis poop, and now you say, okay, shari'an, according to an opinion, I only have to wash it once. I washed it once, I can still see it. Am I good? No. You have to make sure the ayn al-najasa is gone. What if it takes 100 washings? Halas, 100 washings. The Sharia is going to set your minimums, not your maximums. Now, what if a dog licked your bowl and in one washing you got all of the saliva off? You're good. All the saliva is gone. Are we good? La. 7 times. Because the Sharia has said that as a minimum. But taking off the ayn al-najasa is obligatory to begin with. Tayyib. Before I begin the bab, I want to explain some things to make it easier for you to understand the bab. Because this bab in Zad is actually very short, surprisingly. If you look at some of the other books we did, bab Izalul Najasat is longer, but it's very deep. So I don't want you to just go through the bab and then not understand it. I want you to understand it. So, how many types of najasat are there? I'm going to throw some people off today. 3. Everybody good with 3? 4. Yes, I taught you 3, but now we're learning more. See, this is the thing. When you begin a student off, you teach them the minimum. And as you then develop them, you teach them more. Tayyib, what are the 3 that you all know? An-Najāsah Mughallada, An-Najāsah Mutawassita, An-Najāsah Mukhaffafa. Inshallah, if you were in the earlier durus, barakallah lakum, you know those. The 4th one I'm going to add, which you know, but you didn't really put in this, is Najasa ala al-ard. Najasa that is on the ground. And the ahkam of it are different from these 3. When we talk about an-najasa mughallada or mutawassita or mukhaffafa, we're talking about either ala badnihi, on your body, or thawbihi, on your clothes, or ina'ihi, or on your bowls, or something external. But if it's on the ground, it's different. So now you learn 4, inshallah. Tayyib. Najis, najasa, what is the difference? Have you heard somebody say this is najas? Bi-fatha ala jim. Najas. And for example, if you say, my thawb became najis, how would you say that in Arabic? Najasa. Bil-fatha ala jim, sah? Or najasa thawb? Ahlul Lugha, where you guys at? Where my Arab brothers at, bro? Come on. كيف نقول؟ هل نقول نجس الثوب أو نجس الثوب؟ نجس صحيح بفتحة على الجيم. وإذا نقول طيب في القرآن إنما المشركون نجس صحيح. طيب ولكن إذا نقول هذا الشيء الآن هو نجس بكسرة تحت الجيم. If you say this thing is najis, you don't say, like if you have a bowl and a dog licked it, do you say هذا نجسة؟ لا, you say نجس لا بكسرة تحت جيم ليس على تحت حبيبي. طيب. So, what's the difference? لا. إذا الرجل مسلم عليه الشيء نجس. المسلم ليس نجس، ولكن إذا الآن في حالة النجاسة نقول نجس. طيب. حتى لم نقول للمسلم نجس، لأن المسلم هو طاهر أصلا، ولكن ليس المسألة العاقل والغير عاقل. This is why I love to look at the books that are deep. There is a book called Al-Mutli' على الألفاظ المقنعة فالبعلي, and there is a book called Misbah al-Munir للفيومي. I suggested these in my videos to learn. Najasa wa najasun. طيب, if something is najis في نفسه, يعني نجس عينية, النجاسة عينية, نقول نجسة. وإذا الشيء يؤثر بعد أثره ليس فعل, نجس فعل, نجس اسم. طيب, فعل نجس بالفتحة, فتحة فتحة. طيب, but if you say a thing takes the hukm of najasa due to something, يعني ينجس, فقال نجس بكسرة تحت الجيم. فهمت عمر؟ لا؟ طيب. فقال نجس شيء يعني ينجس. Okay. If you look at a mushrik, this is يعني Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says najasun, because this is their actual sifa of them. But a thing that became najis al-shay, then you say it became najis due to coming in contact with something najis, then you use the kasra تحت الجيم. فنجس يعني نجس ينجس, يعني something najis made it najis, something that was najis بالفتح على الجيم made it najis, then you use الكسرة. Clear or not? عينية والحكمية. So if it takes on the sifa due to coming in contact, then you use najis, كسرة تحت الجيم. If it is in itself najis, then najasa. طيب, najasun, يعني because then it will be ism. طيب, and if it's a fi'l, if you're saying this thing became najis fi'lan, najasa, that's fi'lan. I like linguistics, so طيب, now we begin the bab. The muallif he begin يجزئ في غسل najasat, and this is another way of saying anjas, najasat. طيب, كلها, all of it, إذا كانت على الأرض. So we talked about 4 types of najasat. Which one is this? The 4th type, which is على الأرض. All najasat that are on the ground, it is permissible to clean them بغسلة واحدة, with one washing. طيب, ما الدليل? What's your dalil? The famous hadith, all of you have known it, متفق عليه, hadith about the Arabi. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu reported about him, he came, he urinated in a part of the masjid, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam ordered a pitcher of water to be brought and to be poured on it. How much water was poured on it? One large amount. Enough that the najasa ainiya is gone. طيب? Now, for najasa that's on the ground, this is our dalil. This is a dalil. So, if you look at madhab al-Hanafiyya, or Shafi'iyya, or Malikiyya, or Hanabila, for the najasa on the ground, across the board you will find this to be the opinion. One washing is enough. طيب. تذهب بعين النجاسة, as long as the ain al-najasa, the actual najasa physically is gone. Meaning, as I said, if you have, somebody has feces on the ground of a person, right? Now, this is on the ground. It's not on your clothes, it's not on you, it's on the ground. And you pour a large amount of water that takes that feces out, it's gone. Shari'an, it's pure again, the period. Now, you may want to go and clean it more, that's up to you, but the shari'i hukam. But you pour a lot of water, but you can still see the feces there. but you poured one large amount. Are you done? La. The Ayn al-Najasah has to be taken out. وعلى غيرها سبع أحدها بالتراب إذا نجاسة الكلب أو خنزير ويجزى على التراب. We'll stop on the substitute yet. Now the muallif says that on other than the ground, you use 7 washings, one of them being بالتراب, with the earth, if it is najasa of al-kalb or khinzir. So now the muallif has actually taken on 2 types of najasat here, but let's take them one at a time. We mentioned 4. One of them is ala al-ard, that's done. Right? Now we go to the top one. Not going to go to the third one first. All right? So the top one is what? Mughallada. The worst of all najasat, mughallada. So the muallif is saying that if it is mughallada, even though he's not using those words, right? Meaning it's the najasa from a dog or a pig. Then 7 washings, one of them being from the turab. First adilla, the proof. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث الصحيح أخرج إمام مسلم طهور إناء أحدكم إذا ولغ الكلب فيه أن يغسله 7 مرات أولهن بالتراب وفي الرواية أحدهن بالتراب. The muallif says that if it is najasa from a dog or a pig, you do 7 washings, one of them بالتراب. He doesn't say, in Za'ad, he doesn't say the first or second or last. He just says one of them. And one of the riwayat of the hadith also mentions أحدهن, one of them بالتراب. But as we studied in Akhsar and other books, what is rajih is أولهن, because that is صريحا, clearly from another Sahih hadith from Sahih Muslim, that the first of them should be بالتراب. So if a dog, and we'll talk about a pig, but let's say a dog licks one of your bowls. You have a bowl and a dog licks it. How many times you have to wash it? 7 times. Clear hadith. Authentic. Many riwayat for it. Sahih hadith. To different asanid. No doubt. 7 washings. And what is rajih is the first of those washings should be with the earth. Can you use soap in a place and stuff? We're not there yet. That's where I stopped there for a reason. This is what type of najasa? Mughallada. You memorize the types. Mughallada, mutawassita, mukhaffafa, wa ala al-ard. Tayyib. The muallif here says also for the khinzir, for the pig. Tayyib. Now we have khilaf of madahib. From the mufradat of the Hanabila, even though there are other ai from other madahib that took this opinion, but mu'tamidan, the Hanabila say that the khinzir is included in this. Okay? Other madahib said no, because the hadith does not mention khinzir. It just mentions kalb. Tayyib, now we get to an issue though. Ijma'an, the khinzir is najis. Right? Khinzir is najis. So how do you cleanse from the najasa of khinzir? There is no hadith on it. Meaning how many times do you wash? Okay? We know it's najis. If a pig licks you, it's najis. Ijma'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it rijsun in the Quran. Even though the kalb, the dog, is not called dirty in the Quran. We know it's got najasa because of the hadith, but it's not called. No doubt, ijma'an, the pig has been called dirtier than the dog. And if you look at Quran and ahadith, and if you took them all together as a majmu'ah, al-khinzir anjas, it is more najis than al-kalb. So here, when you don't have a hadith sarihan on how to purify from the najasa of the khinzir, but you have a hadith about the kalb, and we know the khinzir has been called najis in the Quran itself. And it is worse than qiyasan. Here, on not the kalb only, but on taking away something that is a great filth, the Hanabila, and this is rajih, this is correct. As even Ibn Kathir and other ai and ulama in their tafsir about the pig talked about how filthy it is, that it's out of animals is the one that's been called the filthiest. Yani in the Quran you see ayat for it and so on. And many other ai and ulama, like one of the great Hanafi ulama, Abu Liz al-Hanafi, the one who wrote the famous Sharh of Aqidah Tahawiyah in a book called At-Tanbih ala Mushkilat al-Hidayah. He also says that this is a very strong opinion. Why? Because no doubt the ayat of Quran and things back the fact that the pig is very filthy. And if you don't have a hadith, then you have to use qiyas. Tayyib. So this is najasa mughallada. The muallif here continues and says that one of them has to be bit turab, and it is permissible to use in place of turab ushnan. Ushnan was a plant that was used for purification. Like today we use soap. And he says, وَنَحُوهُ, and like it. So what is the mas'ala here? Let's say you get a dog licks you and you need to cleanse it, but you don't find turab. Can you use soap in its place? There is khilaf ulama. Some ai said no. You have to use turab. Even one of our own beloved shuyukh, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, said la. Turab has special characters, you have to use turab. But what is the mu'tamid of the madhab? Is that you can use another purifying agent. What is the dalil for that? The dalil for that is things like sabun, soap as we say today. And these types of cleansing agents were not known in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was used as a cleansing agent was used dirt, and it works, no doubt. So no doubt the best thing is to use dirt. But we know that as Muslims, we're going to be living in different places, in different situations. Islam is not just for one time and place, and that's why we have the concept of qiyas. Because if we didn't have qiyas, like some of the brothers, one of the brothers took a shot the other day, it was kind of funny. He was, the madhab al-Zahiri is finished. Even though some people, I'm Zahiri today, where are you learning mutun, where are you developing shuruh and stuff? It's not, right? But he was kind of taking a shot at the Shawafi, Hanabila, Hanafiya and Maliki. He said, you guys are qiyasi people. Nah. You don't use qiyas at all? No qiyas. No qiyas? I told him, okay, akhi. No qiyas at all? No. They prove to me heroin is haram. Bring me an ayah. Bring me a hadith. Right? Prove to me I can pray on a plane. All of these now you're going to make qiyas. So don't think qiyas. Now don't misuse qiyas khalif al-dalil la. Tayyib. So now the issue gets to be, let's say you're on a plane and there's something najis on you now. Where are you going to find dirt on a plane? Like enough to take off and wash something. Yeah, for tayammum you can hit the seat, some ghubar will come up. But that's not enough to wash something. Right? So now you have to be able to understand that the Islam is a practical religion. Things that were not invented in the time of the Prophet ﷺ have to have ahkam qiyasan. For example, cell phone. Can I bring you a hadith about cell phones? La. Can I bring you a hadith about TVs? No. Now I have to use one misguided group. Now I'm going to mention their name, Hizb ut-Tahrir. This misguided group, they started to say that if you see something haram on a TV screen, anything. I had a personal conversation. This is not like something I read on the internet, right? Whatever types of haram that you're not supposed to look at, if it's on a TV, it's halal. What? How is it halal? Astaghfirullah, you're looking at things. He said, well, did Rasulullah ﷺ ever say you couldn't look at it on a TV? Hey, miskeen. So this is why the TV has to take qiyas now on looking at a person. This is not a fatwa, right? Don't get happy here, guys. It's haram. Fatwa will not save you. It's haram to look at haram things. The TV is still haram. So here, qiyas has to be used on other cleansing agents that did the same task as turab did in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's what the muallif mentions here, and that is what is correct. Now, if you can get turab, that's the best. Khalas, use turab. But if you don't, you can use other than it. If you use other than it, and even if you had turab, the hukm is still there. The najasa is gone. Tayyib. Stop today. Stop. Huh? We did substitutions, right? Tayyib. I will do one more mas'ala. وفي نجاسات غيرها سبع بلا تراب. The muallif mentions here that on najasat other than pig and dog. So now we are at, I'm not going to use the fingers because that will come out wrong if I do that. Tayyib. We are now on the second. We've done the fourth and first. Now we're on the second. Mutawassita, the middle. The muallif here says, for those you have to wash 7 times, but without turab. No need for turab. Here we have khilaf of ulama. And there are many aqwal, but I'm going to stick to the famous madahib because this is, we don't have time to go into all of them. So, thalatha aqwal. There are 3 aqwal. Al-awwal, the first, as I've mentioned here, sab'a marat, 7 times, and this is the mu'tamid of the Hanbali madhab. For mutawassita, it has to be washed 7 times, but not with the earth. This is the mu'tamid. And no doubt there is much khilaf within the Hanbali madhab on this issue, but in Al-Insaf, Sharh Al-Muntaha Al-Iradat, or in Al-Ghaya, or the Al-Muqni', all of the books that we look at to figure out the mu'tamid, this is the mu'tamid. Okay? Qawl al-thani, second saying is for mutawassita thalatha marrat, 3 times. And this is a qawl in the Hanbali madhab, as Muwaffiquddin ibn Qudama, Muwaffiquddin, the great scholar, seems to have preferred an al-Umda. When we studied al-Umda, this is what we found. And this is the qawl in the Hanafi madhab as well. The Hanafi madhab has this qawl, as in the book Al-Mabsut, or the Sharh Al-Kitab, which is called Al-Kitab fi Sharh Al-Lubab, and the Hashiyah of Ibn Abidin, and in other books you will find this qawl mentioned as a statement in the Hanafi madhab as well. The third qawl, and this is the qawl of Jamhur al-Ulama, is that there is no adad other than 1. One washing is the minimum until Ayn al-Najasah is gone. And this is the opinion of the Malikiyah and the Mu'tamid of the Malikiyah, as Ibn Abdul Barr mentioned in Al-Kafi, and Al-Mukhtasar al-Khalil also has this as the Mu'tamid of the Maliki madhab. This is the Mu'tamid of the Shafi'i madhab, as An-Nawawi mentioned in Al-Majmu' to be Mu'tamid, and Manhaj al-Talibin, and so on. And this is a qawl in the Hanafi madhab as well, as mentioned in the Hashiyah of Ibn Abidin. And this is a qawl in the Hanbali madhab as well, as mentioned in Al-Muqni' as another qawl, and in Al-Kafiyah. And Ibn Qudama in Al-Mughni seems to have preferred this opinion as well, even though it's not sarihan. Now let's talk about adillah. The madhab says 7, and the dalil they have is first and foremost qiyasan on the pig and the and then qiyasan on the khinzir, saying that this is the only ghayr ala al-ard, not on the earth, number that has been mentioned. But this qiyas, and even the Hanabala use it, but this is a weak qiyas, because no doubt we already mentioned that if you're going to make qiyas on that, then why did you take turab out? Then the hadith also mentions turab. Secondly, they have a riwayah from Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma. فقال Ibn Umar, umirna, we were ordered بغسل, to watch al-anjas, those things that are najis, sab'an. Umirna, would make it marfu'an, yani from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the problem is this hadith is not established. Some of the A'imma said it's da'if. Shaykh al-Albani said I couldn't even find the sanad of it. Personally, I couldn't find the sanad of it. Some of the ulama made jarh of it. Khair, either way, it's not established. So even though this is the madhab, I'm going to go against it. Why? Because our loyalty has to be to kitab wa sunnah. And for those brothers watching and things that hate on me for doing this kind of a thing, they just teach the madhab, just teach the madhab. Yani Ibn Qudama and Al-Umda went against it. So if you have a problem with me, go take it up with him. For me, I want to stick to adillah. We use a madhab, a book to study, to benefit, to develop, but that doesn't mean that our loyalty is to the madhab. Our loyalty is to al-kitab wa sunnah. In the kitab or in the sahih ahadith, we don't find adillah for this qawl. Which takes us to the second qawl, 3 times, for the mutawassita. What is the adillah there? The clear hadith that is used as the proof, the sahih hadith, about the one who wakes up from his sleep. What Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, before you put your hands in a bowl, wash them 3 times. So this is a dalil. Why? Because, why do you wash them? Not just because you wash the rest of your body, not because you slept, but because you don't know where your hand went. Maybe it touched some madi or something else, or wadi, or maybe somebody was scratching, whatever, and they touched something else, whatever. Wherever it may have been, to generally cleanse, 3 washings is mentioned. The last of the opinions, which is the Jamhur, and many of the Hanabila, even Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and others, and many classic Hanabila took the opinion of 1 washing, as long as it took care of the Ayniyah. And the dalil they used for that, there is a hadith from Ibn Umar that we were ordered to wash 7 and then 5 and then 3 and then 1 and so on. But that is also da'if, very weak. Multiple points of da'f in it. Then they say, what about the hadith of the Arabi that urinated in the masjid? But this is al ard. Then you're mixing 2 categories. So, no doubt this is also a strong opinion, but the strongest opinion, wallahu alam, in my research, is the opinion as Muwaffaquddin ibn Qudama has given in Al-Umda, which is 3 washings. For mutawassita, 3 washings. Why? Because if we look at other adillah from Sahih Ahadith, Najasah on the badan does not have any other number given, but this hadith is aam. Now, usually if you're sleeping, a dog's not going to come lick your hand. Not in a wholesome environment, maybe in America, but right? But in the time of Sahaba and stuff, they didn't keep dogs in the house and things. So that najasa would not, that is dealt with another issue. Pigs are not going to come lick your hand, right? So all the other types of mutawassita najasat that you don't know what came, Rasulullah said 3 washings will take care of it. So this is a strong dalil. It's not mixing ard and badan. It's not taking da'if hadith. It's a strong dalil. So the medium najasat, how many times? 3 times. I'm going to end here with just one more clarification. We see some of our brothers, respected brothers and some like doctors in Sharia that may be in Qatar, that may have a university, not going to mention the name, say some ajib things nowadays, right? We respect them, wallahi we love them, but one of the things I heard strange, that if a dog licks your clothes or your body, you don't have to wash it 7 times. MashaAllah. Why? Because the hadith mentioned the bowl. Tayyib, the hadith mentioned the bowl, but what is the ilm of the hadith? Is it the cleaning of the najasa or the bowl itself? Is the hadith trying to explain to you the ahkam of a bowl or the ahkam of the najasa of walagh al-kalb? The najasa. This is like saying that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about bowl, to wash the bowl, but he didn't say if it gets on your qulanswa. So if the hadith doesn't mention qulanswa, if urine gets on your qulanswa, you don't have to wash it. What? The miskeen. This is where somebody takes a hadith, mashallah, but they don't know usul. And they don't know fiqh. La. This is the hukm on the najasa. Whether a pig or a dog licks a bowl, or licks your hand, or licks a thobe, or licks a car, the najasa is where it has to be washed 7 times. Ahaduna bit turab. And I will end here, insha'Allah ta'ala.